All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another protagonist swap involving the protagonists of both Vanquish and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Since I've never played Infinite Warfare and I know even less about Vanquish, I'll be handing it over to Mangler. Mangler, explain our protagonists.
Thank you. We are going to do this like a normal protagonist because we don't have any sort of like squad. So no squad swap like the last two sets. It will just be Lieutenant Reyes from Infinite Warfare and Sam Gideon from Vanquish just getting swapped. First, we're doing Sam Gideon from Vanquish in Infinite Warfare as he goes through the Infinite Warfare campaign. He'll be brought in under the premise of basically, he's participating in a science project that's jointly funded by a some unnamed research institute by unnamed from our perspective, but it will be named in the verse for the scenario. It's just a made up name. With them and some unnamed PMC that has basically co-opted some of its resources and I guess is presenting a product for a few weeks of training and testing with Admiral Reyes and his crew. And this is like 3 weeks done before the beginning of Infinite Warfare. So like before the flight week mission, which Reyes is able to show up at. So the second mission of the campaign. And Reyes or Reigns will agree to this. And Sam Gideon will be yeeted in. Reyes will be yeeted out. So, yeah, he's not doing the Rising Threat mission. That's the first mission. That's not the Reyes mission. So it will just be Black Sky, and then he'll do Operation Port Armor, Operation Burnwater, Operation Dark Quarry, Operation Black Flag, and Operation Storm. He's not doing any of the side missions. I know they exist in the campaign, but he's not doing them because I don't remember them. And it also really wouldn't fit Sam Gideon in this case, which I'm going to explain later why that's a problem. But for now, just keep in mind it doesn't fit his character, and also it's not really relevant to the main campaign. They're just objectives in the war against the SecDef, but most of your main missions are these 7. Okay, now that we've done that, protagonist swap, so same stats, same AP strength as Lieutenant Reyes. But none of his equipment, none of his experience, or none of his skills. Vanquish Sam Gideon is getting really nerfed here because he has like FTL to, in some cases, maybe massively FTL, depending on how you want to interpret his reaction speed in comparison to the lasers he's dodging from the bogey boss fights at the end of the game and midpoint of the game, plus a bunch of like electrical discharges and him also perceiving bullets in slow motion. This would be a very different swap if he was like using his actual stats, but he's not. So he's just as fast as Reyes is, plus now he has the ability to slide across the room and also increases perception time. So he's drastically slower than he would be. So a lot of his speed advantage is mainly going to be used for traversal and just speed running the room rather than like actually dodging bullets. Honestly, for this first section, for Black Sky's like Fleet Week, it's basically just like whatever you would interpret the military leave for the Air Force, where they basically go home and see their families and just celebrate.
Yes.
That's what Fleet Week is. During Black Sky, you're just chilling out with the Air Force on one of their main administrative buildings. And you're walking around, and then like I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, you're flying on a you go up to the top of the roof with Lieutenant Salter, and you're on board like a drop ship. You run into Ethan, the prototype robot, and Admiral Rains, and you're basically on your way to the ceremony to show off Ethan, and then your defense turrets at the what the hell is this place called? I cannot remember. It is I cannot remember the name of this location. It's like a specific country. It fucking doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I'm so annoyed at this point already. So it doesn't matter.
Understood.
The city that you're in, there are literal defense turrets similar to the ones that the Mac cannons have. The Mac cannons are in Halo that just targets any sort of aerial threats that are deemed a problem to the I guess, Earth Defense Fleet, and they just shoot them down. They immediately start targeting your ship and the fleets that are there at Fleet Week. Because during Fleet Week, they're also showing off the entire Infinite Warfare's actual like Earth Defense Fleet, and most of them get shot down or damaged during this mission. So you just fight your way through the. After you get shot down, you start fighting your way through some of the buildings. I think like part of a mall and then down to the streets. And I guess the rest of the sec def soldiers you also start attacking because they start dropping in after their ships warp jump inside of your planet and then start dropping soldiers into the cities and start killing civilians. So Sam's just going to make his way through the streets, shooting people. Um, all of Sam's weapons, as far as his assault rifles, sniper rifles, machine guns, etc., all of them are going to be effective against the Sec Def soldiers. They don't have like significantly stronger body armor or anything like that. Plus, for this scenario, while he only has access to 3 weapons, and yes, he's only limited to 3 weapons. I understand that he has more than that, but in the case of Vanquish, it is made explicitly clear that the DARPA arms system, his actual shield or his suit system, while it can copy any weapon that it finds, it can also store only up to 3 weapons because it's a prototype. It is not the fully finished version of that suit. So it can only have like 3 at a time. So we're going to be giving him, for this scenario, the assault rifle, the sniper rifle, and the giant laser cannon. Um, he should be able to cut through most of the bots, like the most C6 robots and regular soldiers. When they get to the section where they have to, like, I guess, hide in this room while Ethan holds the robots at bay and he gives you a hacking device, he'll just take whatever hacking device he gets from, like, Ethan, and he'll equip that as part of his
His suit.
thing. It's just a hacking module that allows you to basically hack robots through walls, and you can also see their positions. And then after you finish using them, they self-destruct and killing even more people.
Oh, that's pretty
Fun
cool.
little toy. Oh yeah, it's actually pretty broken. But overall, he'll have access to that, and I guess his grenades, both EMPs and frags, and both of them are going to be very effective. Well, okay, his EMPs are going to be effective. His frag grenades are not going to be effective because they're designed for zero-G environments, which means they bounce way too much. They're not very effective even in the Vanquish game. The only thing that makes them effective is that Sam Gideon is just way faster than the grenades are, but in this case, he wouldn't be because he's just like as fast as like a normal, or like an athletic human to like a superhuman level character. So he's not really like that fast.
I'm just so confused.
Granted, you can make
You
some
say it's
arguments.
designed for
Reyes
zero
is
G. But what the fuck does that mean?
it's designed for zero gravity environments, like when you're in a vacuum. So it's intended to bounce a bunch, so that when it moves around in an area that doesn't really have like a lot of directional movement, it can still retain like it still has some mobility. Because stuff that works in a vacuum, as far as movement, is usually intended to cover as much distance as possible. Because in a vacuum, you unless you have like momentum, you just kind of float like really, really slowly. It's kind of why jet propulsion systems and stuff like that are very, very effective in a vacuum because you need the ability to move yourself from side to side.
I'll take your word for it, but I feel like I
And
have to
I guess
see it to understand it.
well, it's just a very bouncy grenade, and it often misses its targets consistently. The only thing that actually makes it useful in the game is that when you throw it, you can pop, slow down time from your perception, and shoot a grenade as it goes over cover midair. But that's more so the fact that Gideon is just so fast; he can just blow up the grenade whenever he wants to midair. That's less of the grenade being effective and more so him just being on the fly. Yeah, then you just fight through the streets, breach the control room. I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to kill most characters here. Fights hordes and hordes of soldiers. Then I don't think that'll be any different here. Plus, he also has Reyes and he has Ethan and he has Salter here him who can all fight the same number of soldiers. I think they're going to be just fine. Plus, he also has the really broken laser cannon, and I believe the laser cannon's description is that it is directly stated to have the battleship class like the attack power or something. Hang on, let me go find it really quickly. Someone actually dropped it in the someone dropped it in the general chats when they were messaging me.
Did they?
And I can find it right here. Yes,
I
they did.
wouldn't know.
Yeah, I don't entirely remember where it's located. Kind of bugs me that I don't have access to it right now. Oh, here it is. Yeah, so it's a laser cannon made possible only by parting it with the R's. Fires for short durations. It boasts battleship class destructive power. Keep in mind, it is just a laser, so it doesn't literally blow up like, large building or city block level stuff. But like, if it hits something, it has the attack potency of a battleship. So it is basically going to kill anything that it touches in like a relatively short frame of time. Granted, it drains his R system energy, which has to recharge, but he could just sit back and shoot people. I mean, it's a goddamn laser. It's going to cover the entire room in like the shortest increment possible. So he just needs to spot them and just. He can also pick up whatever weapons he wants in this campaign. So he's going to get access to pop grenades, frag grenades, jammer grenades, anti-grabs. Frag grenades in Infinite Warfare have the ability to basically leave a combustible gas right before they detonate, and then when they kill enemies or wound enemies, they actually tell you if they killed or wounded enemies. I don't know how they managed to design their grenades in that way, but the secret grenades do the same thing. And when secret grenades track somebody, they send a visual to your HUD for where the target is located. So even if you don't use the secret grenade, you can just activate it to designate the target, and you can see them through a wall, and then just go to their position and kill them. And then if the secret grenade also goes and grabs them and then explodes, it will also let you know if it injured or killed the target. All of which is a feature of the Seeker.
I see. Interesting.
I feel like you're not impressed.
I'm just a little more surprised because I know next to nothing about this game. You could tell me
Well, the
anything, and
warfare
I'm
is
just gonna,
infinite.
bruh, do not do that. Tell me that's not in the game where they have like a cheesy line like that.
No, they don't. They were self-conscious of it. They're just like, no, we're just going to make a really advanced weaponry, and then we'll leave you guys your own devices. And I was like, cool. I've always wanted to play a COD game that has the technology of Halo. Let's go. And that's what I did. Anyway, once you take to the sky, this is where it's going to be a problem. So Sam Gideon is not an Air Force pilot, and as you recall me mentioning, he was going to have some problems in this protagonist one as far as some of the missions. The side missions have a lot of missions where you have to get on board the Jackal, which is their standard fighter jets that can basically go. It can even go out of atmosphere, get into dogfights, and even take to the skies and battle other battleships. It requires an understanding of how to use a fighter jet. Not just that, but it also moves its speeds way faster than a regular fighter jet because it can go out of atmosphere, it's vacuum pressurized, and it can also travel up to like 40,000 kilometers per hour. So it's very, very, very quick. That wouldn't be an issue for Sam if he knew how to pilot, but he's not. In fact, Sam throughout most of the game is actually being led by the hand by Elena, within the control room, basically giving him updated intel about the Russian stars during Vanquish. She's basically the girl in the chair, right? That's just walking him through the missions and giving him intel. That wouldn't be happening right here. I mean, yeah, they would have like command who's giving them some information, but that would be different in this case because he's not going to know how to pilot the ship. So Salter is pretty much going to have to take the lead on this because I think she's flat out stated to be the
Mhm.
best pilot in the fleet. And Ethan is we'll just say that Ethan is going to fly because he's an advanced robot. I'm pretty sure he's programmed with the ability to fly. Well, also he does fly things. We'll just say he flies in replacement for Gideon, and Gideon's going to be in the co-pilot seat. So he's not going to be flying any of these missions for any of the campaigns. So if Ethan fails and their ship blows up or something like that, he will lose a life. There is nothing he can do.
Nothing he can do, Mangler?
Literally nothing he can do. They do. So you do go outside of the planet and just start attacking the SDF fleet after you leave the Fleet Week area. Return to Retribution. Seeker. Then you fight. You fight the super carrier Olympus Mons. Retribution crashes into it, kills their captain and their second CO. Then Mons fails, and then you start doing Operation Port Armor. So this happens immediately afterwards. Reyes in the campaign gets promoted to captain because, he doesn't get promoted to captain. He becomes the acting CO on board Retribution because the captain dies and the next commanding officer dies, and he is the highest ranking person on there. But they do mention in the first mission that Salter is also the same rank as him. They just made Reyes the guy because he's the main protagonist. But since Reyes isn't there and Gideon is not officially in rank with the military, Salter would be the CO. And she's pretty much going to do most of the same decisions that Reyes does. She'll probably be a little bit more effective than he is. But that is going to change things a little bit when it comes to some of these missions.
A little bit, are you sure?
Yeah, I think the next mission is this is an easy one. This is Operation Port Armor, where you basically go to the moon and try to take control of you just basically try to take control of the lunar terminal and get the SecDef out of there because the SecDef is basically attacking a bunch of base locations all across the star system. And you also try to get what civilians you can out of there. In this scenario, it's going to be the same as the previous mission. He'll just hug cover whatever he can, ride around corners and shoot enemies, blast them with lasers and snipers and stuff. I guess he'll get access to anti-gravs, which, if anyone's wondering what that is, it is a grenade that when you throw it, it manipulates the force of gravity to send an enemy upwards into the air so that you can shoot them for 5 seconds straight and there's nothing they can do if they're on the gravity. Even if they're behind cover, they get sent into the air. Unless they drift out, they're pretty much helpless.
That sounds pretty good.
So it's anti-cover grenade, and you get like 4 of these usually at a time.
Bruh.
So I guess his grenades will probably have run out at this point, but he'll have like all of his other ammunition. He keeps scanning weapons. Plus, since he's on the Retribution and he'll be going down for most of these missions, the Retribution actually has a better weapon printing system than his suit does, because when you pick up weapons in the field, it will send a scan of it all the way back to the Retribution, and they will print it out of 3D printer with all of its customized attachments to your liking, and you can choose your loadout before the mission. That's actually a canon thing. Like, they'll just scan any weapon they find in the battlefield and send the data back to the Retribution and just build it. So, or print it, I guess.
Bruh.
So even if he doesn't have the weapon, he can just get it from the Retribution. Not that any of his weapons won't work on robots. He'll be fine there. Like again, the robots in Infinite Warfare aren't anything like super special. You can kill them with ballistic weapons. They're both ballistic and energy weapons, and you can kill the robots in Vanquish with ballistic and energy weapons. So it's going to be pretty easy. Like none of them have any like high scaling feats as far as like AT or what. They're just conventional weaponry. So he's going to slide through this mission, kill most of these enemies pretty easily. And then I guess he'll have to repel the Secdef Destroyer, which Salter's going to have to take point on that one again. So Gideon's probably just going to be waiting around unless he just gets in her. But honestly, Salter's going to feel like this is going to feel like a joint protagonist swap at this point because he's just going to be piggybacking on Salter every time they do every time they're like fighting for the room. It's a joint effort, and then as soon as they find a pilot, Salter's going to carry. So if Salter dies for any reason, both of them are going to die. So the
Like
next one, I believe. Sorry, what?
It sounds like you just don't have faith.
What are you going to do if you can't pilot a ship?
You can always just
the next one
pilot the ship.
Is Burnwater. Yeah, so he's going to go with Sergeant Omar of the Marines and Ethan and Salter, pretty much all of them. You're supposed to land near a SecDef fueling station. You cripple the station, which will hamper the SecDef fleet, and then you expect fierce resistance because they're aware of how important the refinery is. It is a pretty simple mission. You just travel with the Marines on the ground to get to like a forward operating base and just breach your way through the gates using explosive charges and any number of weapons that you can find in the facility. You also get access to since you're rolling with the Marines, they also give you access to APCs and giant mech suit class robots that look like something out of Mech Warrior. They're really huge. They're like the size of buildings, and they can blow open gates pretty easily, like a large metal gates. So yeah, you just kind of hide behind that for most of the mission, as it just throttles your enemies, and there's nothing they can do about it because it's a giant fucking robot. There is one of the Goliath class, or not, it's not a Goliath class, it's something else. There's another huge robot that you run into of the same specs of yours, but you're able to deal with it pretty easily by using the prototype Scars weapon, which is in the room. And since this is a Call of Duty campaign, every character is going to yell at the main protagonist to go and get the weapon because none of them can do it themselves. So they're just going to yell at Sam, "Hey, go grab that weapon," and he's just going to go slide over there and just blow off their arms with it.
As you do.
That'll be simple. Then you detonate the stuff on the refinery, escape, and then the next one you have is Dark Quarry, I believe. This is where you have to go to Mercury. You have to go to an asteroid mining facility and figure out what happens. And as you know, Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. And in this game, there is a gameplay mechanic for what the sun does when you are on various sections of the map. If you're out in the open when the sun passes, you basically get incinerated. So they're going to avoid doing that. I believe in this case, they basically just sneak around for most of this mission. It's just a stealth mission until the end. And then you get attacked by a bunch of robots. So he'll just throw some EMP grenades or some jammer grenades. They'll just kill most of them until they have to hold their position and they get their ship down. I believe Omar dies in this one because he is when they're running up to their helipad. There's a soldier that gets hit by some material or some shrapnel as a result of an explosion from the sun. The sun just burning some objects on the surface. And Omar goes back to get him, and then he tells you to leave. Reyes tries to go and get him as they're pulling off and Soldier falls off. We'll say that Gideon tries to do the same thing, except Gideon is actually able to like save Omar because he could just speed up his perception of time and then just roll over there a little quickly and try and grab him just before he gets burned to death. Just barely before. And then they get out. All scot-free. Omar being alive is not going to change too much. And then after that, we have Operation Black Flag. I believe this is the second to last mission. Oh, yes. So during the campaign, you are basically told by the Earth Defense Fleet and Admiral Rains that one of the reasons why the SecDef was able to find out, like, well, the reason they were able to attack at Fleet Week, at Geneva, that's what it was, Geneva, is because there is a sleeper cell. It's like Raya. He's I think his name is either Admiral or Colonel Raya. He's one of the colonels or one of the high-ranking officers of the Settlement Defense Fleet. He basically went to Earth and worked as a sleeper cell for years. So he had a chip that was put inside of his body that in the event of his death, in the event that he died, he killed himself or whatever, it would send an alarm signal to the Settlement Defense Fleet, and then they would immediately be prepared to jump, to FTL jump across the solar system to Earth and then attack them. So that's what he was going to do. He was going to kill himself at the end of the first mission, but you stop him when you capture him. And once they examined his body via X-rays, they found out that there was an inhibitor chip in there. So they decided, hey, why don't we just take him in a prisoner transport, put him in this location, extract it via like surgery, and then trigger the device, and then we'll have our defense turrets basically blow up their fleet when they show up here, expecting to kill us. And it was a good plan. It's just that Raya gets broken out of his prisoner transport on the way to the location, and you have to basically chase him on foot. You kill most of the soldiers in the various back alleys and rooftops that you're running through to get to his position. Though I feel like in this case, this is going to be especially good for Gideon because Sam excels in very high speed movement and running from location to location in very quick time reactions. So he's probably just going to chase Raya before Raya even gets to his destination. And assuming Raya even gets to the final destination where he's located, the only reason he even stops Reyes at the end of the mission is because he's hiding behind a door and he does that thing where in like every Call of Duty game where you go into a door and then a cutscene plays and you just get punched in the face or something like that. And then you either get captured or incapacitated. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it happens a lot. It's really annoying that it happens in COD games, but it only happens because one, it's scripted happening, and two, usually the character isn't expecting it. That's not going to be an issue for Gideon because Raya in the cutscene has to punch you a couple times to actually knock you out. The moment he even hits Sam, assuming he hits at all, Sam's just going to activate his R system, and he's just going to bob and weave and then just punch Reyes out. Because Reyes is going to be moving like a statue from his perspective once he activates that adrenaline system. And then he'll just subdue him. They'll just extract the chip as expected. Raya is never going to disable the turrets, which is what he does in the main campaign. Reigns is not going to die because Reigns only dies because the turrets get disabled. The defense fleet shows up and blows up the ship. Or blows up his building that he's in with their ships. That's not going to happen. So Gideon basically saves Reigns' life without even realizing it. And then they're just gonna activate the defense chip, and then when they're ready, the settlement defense fleet is going to show up, and they're just going to get blasted by those turrets. Their super carrier Olympus Mons is going to be downed or obliterated because they're the entire reason you have a last mission in the campaign is because your turret defense system gets disabled. But that only happens because Raya punches you out because he's hiding behind a door. So because Gideon was just slightly faster in one instance, um, yeah, the settlement defense fleet loses all their troops on at the end of this mission. You do not have to go to Mars at the end of the campaign and then die along with the rest of your team. So yeah, the fate of retribution, they're not going to die. They're not going to lose their ship. Um, it's yeah, no, that this might be the end of the campaign. Technically, it's an it's pardon my puns, but it is infinitely better than what happened in the actual campaign when literally the entire cast dies in the final mission because all of you just have to make sacrifices to complete the mission. But that's never going to happen because the only reason you go there is because the fleet destroys most of your troops here and you have to board their ship immediately because you have no other choice. But that's not going to matter here because you'll just blow up their capital ship and everything. Or even if it did, you would still have more support because again, you would have actually blown up most of their ships. Command would still be operable, etc. So even if they did the hypothetical mission, even if we said hypothetically they would go and do Bloodstorm, they would still have multiple ships they could take with them. And they could probably just capture Olympus Mons. But yeah, I think this is the end of the campaign. I don't think Sam Gideon's going to die, but even if he does die, he would probably end up dying on the last mission, which Reyes, the main character of the game, dies at the very end of the game. Like he dies as the mission, and he lets Salter escape with a ship to get back to Earth. So
So
even if Gideon did die,
we would not
he
count
would
that
he
against
would
it.
just die in a circumstance where he's scripted to die. Yeah. We would not count that because he's scripted to die in that circumstance. But I don't even think it's going to get that far. Most of their fleet's going to get obliterated when they show up here, and the turrets are just going to shoot them out of the sky. Granted, they still have like a supply chain outside of Mars, but in this circumstance, well, actually, you could just argue they could literally just take the since they took out most of the defense fleet, they wouldn't have any ships at the actual like supply chain thing in the last mission. So if they show up with the Olympus capital ships that they capture, which they will, they're just going to take pot shots at it until they obliterate it. None of his crew is going to have to sacrifice them because none of that's going to happen. Again, circumstances are just better. So yeah, I think
Nice.
that's probably it. God, that took a lot to remember.
Mhm.
Holy shit!
It's okay. You did well.
Would have been a lot easier if I played this game recently.
Ah, happens. Don't worry
Yeah, I
about
think that's it.
it. All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and here.
I
Thank you guys
won't.
for your time as always. Wait, what was that? You said you were gonna say something?
I I, I said I won't. I won't worry about it. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you guys for your time as always. Have a nice day. I'll see you guys on next stream or video. Take care, everybody.